Welcome to Project Datapod, Vibe Learning 10 Backend Languages by Building 10 CLI Frameworks. What this is a way to learn many backend languages and to have many little frameworks that you can use to quickly make sites that you publish at Vercel and can update very quickly. So it's kind of a combination between two. I have this little diagram. Vibe learning, the 10 languages, and vibe coding. Vibe because, yeah, I think we all use editors now with AI. And what I found out in the last week or so is that it really works to use languages that you don't know very well to build sites that are very useful. And through building them, through asking AI to do coding for you, you can learn these languages very quickly. So it's an experiment in these two areas, and so far it works very well. So how does this work? One of these frameworks is in this animation, which is at my how-to site, which I will have in the show notes. And as you can see here, I have a text file and the animation is now typing in a new flashcard just with text. I run npm run pd, parse data, and it parses this text, creates a new JSON file, and immediately in the React site, you have a new flashcard. That's the point. So now I'm editing this flashcard, adding the large house and la grande maison, and running the script pd, which changes the JSON file, which immediately changes the React site. And these sites are all ready to be published online. For instance, at Vercel, they work very well. So the point is you write your own parser to parse the text, or read anything you want, read a database, read an API, read an Excel file, and parse that into JSON, push it to your GitHub, which then pushes it to Vercel, and within 30 seconds your easily updated website is online. So let me go through this how-to very quickly, and then I will show you the code for each of the frameworks. So yeah, vibe learning, vibe coding. As I say, you can use VS Code, Cursor, Tray, or almost any other editor today to edit these projects in for your own purposes. One of the concepts here is that I program these frameworks all very similarly. They have similar names for their classes and methods, and with that structure, what you can do is create a new method or a new class, and then very easily, because you've programmed it in one language, use AI to convert it to another language. AI is almost 100% in doing that. If it has code in one language, it can produce almost 100% functional code in another language. So having these frameworks where they each have their own language, you can be learning many languages at once and just transferring what you do from one to the other. That's the idea here, to take advantage of AI as it replaces us. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is, yeah, use AI after it creates code for you to explain the code in languages that you don't know. I found that that has worked very well as I did these 10 frameworks in the last 10 days. Basically learned a lot about Ruby, have never used Elixir before, had never done what I did in Bash, and it's just fascinating how fast you can learn now. So that's the idea there. Also, I have in each of the frameworks the ability, or this command, npm run learn, and then the name of or the number of exercise. And so how I use this is I watch tutorials in each of these languages. So if I'm watching a tutorial in Go and learn something, then let me show you. For instance, here is the Go framework and scripts developer learn Go. So here I have my learn class or struct, whatever it is. No, actually it's just a list of functions. Okay, and I have exercise 1, and I was experimenting with map, and I can then do npm run learn 001, and it then executes that code. So things that I learn are all in one place, always in the framework. So when I clone this framework or copy it and start a new project, all of what I've been learning is in the project as well. That's the idea there. The current state of each framework is the following. The front end is a React site, which has a JSON file as the data source. When it gets pushed to Vercel, of course, the JSON file gets compiled into a JavaScript object or array and exists on a CMD. That's why it has to be in JSON. It is in 100% TypeScript, the front end. Create browser router, which is the latest version of React Router. Easypeasy, redux, which has very nice state management. That's kind of, you can look at it. It's a nice way to do validation with Zod and TypeScript so that it keeps any data that comes into the application very clean and validated. Tailwind is used, ANSAS, and it's 100% responsive. And the backend really isn't a backend, it's just a CLI. At this point, you can add whatever you want because these CLI commands use helper functions, and you could use those in an APIs as well. But basically, you just have your commands. I can give you an example of that. They are in, of course, package.json and under scripts. So npm run dev starts the site, npm run cp, I can do that, run cp, which is for create page, but for now it's just a placeholder. This command will create a new page in the React app. So that's kind of the next version or the next steps for this Datapod project is to create commands that do code generation in the front end, kind of like Angular, the Angular CLI, where you can just type, what is it, ng create component, and you have a component, you have 4 files that pop up and they're all ready to go. That's what this framework is basically ready for you to do. Yeah, and yeah, just so you can get a kind of sense of this. Where is this happening in Go? So I did npm run cp. It goes into the scripts cmd create page, and it says go run, which runs main Go. What does it do? It imports 2 of these qtools. I'll tell you about that in a second. Qtools. Qtools is a feature of Datapod. Datapod is a project I've been doing for about 20 years, and they work well. And so I use debug just to, this is like a console log with a little icon and a timestamp. And then I say CLI message. So this is a message, and then you can send it a code for the icon. Yeah. Yeah, so that's how these scripts work, and then the idea is to make as many scripts as you want to parse data or to generate features on the front end or change the site, or yeah, that's basically the Datapod, one of the Datapod or one of the features of Datapod that makes sites very easy to create. So now that I'm on that topic, I mentioned qtools. Qtools is here. So we have scripts, we have all the commands, developers for learning right now. Then we have qtools, and that's basically all that each of the frameworks have. So qtools are basically like, and I have this here, qtools somewhere. Yeah. They are basically like tools or helpers or utils that you find in many applications, but they're kind of organized. So qtools in a Datapod site is always a directory, and inside that are then these other files that have tools in them that are organized into categories. So you have qstr, which are string functions, anything that basically returns a string or parses a string. Qfile, which are file functions, so writing files, reading files, deleting directories, creating directories. Qdat, which is datetime functions, anything that adds, subtracts time and that kind of thing. Qmat, math functions, so anything like random numbers or any calculations, anything to do with that returns a number basically. Then I have qCLI for, anything that helps you program the CLI easily, and then qdev. So the idea here is that for each of these frameworks, once you get used to one framework, you kind of know that if you want to read all of the text into an array out of a file, then you're going to use something called getLinesFromFile. And in every framework, it's named the same. There are subtle differences, like in Python, you want to have underscores, so you have this snake syntax. And here you have Pascal syntax in Go, but they work the same. And so the idea is that as these frameworks evolve and advance, and we have in qtools not dozens but hundreds of functions, once you get fluent in one of these frameworks, knowing which qtools do what, it's going to be the same in every framework. So that'll help you move to other languages quite easily. And also, which is nice, you can look at, like, if you're very familiar with Go, you know how Go code reads files, you can read this and understand it, but you're not very fluent yet at Python. Well, you can look at the Python code and basically see that it's doing the same thing. And I found in building these frameworks, I found that to be fascinating to see how these frameworks accomplish the same goal. Like, you can look at the bash. Bash, well, it does things quite differently. It has its own way. And then you have Elixir and Ruby that are, kind of doing their own thing. Ruby very object-oriented, and Elixir very functional, and yeah. And Rust doing its own thing. Yeah, so it's fascinating. And also useful because you have basically the same structure going on here. Yeah, let me go through all of the main points here. I think we looked at that. Yeah, or the idea here is that what we're doing is parsing a text file into a JSON file, and the idea is that if you just want a site that you can update quickly, you probably don't want to have to create JSON. You can read it and that kind of stuff, but it's very has a lot of syntax that you don't want to have to type each time. So you make some kind of very easy syntax for yourself, and then you write a parser for it. And the idea of Datapod is that it's going to have many of these qtools to help you very quickly make these kinds of parsers. So it's very easy to, have some kind of format that you keep in a text file, and that automatically gets parsed into JSON. Or also, you have an Excel file. And so you just change something in an Excel file and save it, and then press parse, and it reads the Excel file and creates a JSON file for you. Or it reads a database, or it reads a API. And so when you type npm run pd, it parses all of your data, regardless of where it is, and puts it in one data format, JSON, which gets pushed up to Vercel and runs safely and securely on a CDN. So that's the Datapod way. And then, as I develop this, I'm going to re-implement many of the features that I've done in Datapod sites in the past 20 years. For instance, this here is the text file for this how-to. I mean, you have to think, like, how did I type all of this? Did I type it in HTML? No. Do I have all of these items in a database somewhere? No. I have it in a text file. So I can very easily just type the text and add pictures. I don't know if I have an example here. So I can go there. One sec. This is actually this is the how-to. So I have basically it's based on Markdown, so this is all Markdown, but it also parses outline mode. So all of this indentation is then parsed into ULLI HTML. And also this is the animation. So there's a GIF, and then this is the GIF file, the name of the GIF file. And there's also pictures, or images. Images are pound. Where's an example of that? Let me search for it. Yeah, here. So vibe is that vibe image, and I just have to create the image, put it in a specific directory, type #vibe, and then it reads it in. And that works very well. It's so easy to make these things, these how-tos. So that's not all. It also has this Datapod syntax. So how-to is the name of an item. And then you have the fields, ID, category, title, body, etc. And these get parsed into JSON, an array of JSON objects. And then there's one more level to it, and that is that these fields are all strongly typed, but very strongly typed. So you don't just have like number, type string. You have, like, this is type paragraph, so it knows to parse it accordingly. This is type line, which is basically a string. This is not only type number, but it inherits from number. It's type ID, so it's treated in a different way. And so you can have things like type not just type number, but type kilometer. And when type kilometer is displayed on your front end, then it can automatically be converted to miles, for instance, or that kind of thing. Or you can have like, if you're doing, one thing I used it for was I had a book site, so books have a number of pages, and so I had page number of pages, and the field type was then whole number. But then I thought, okay, I could just inherit from that and have a new type called book pages, and this book pages data type has a validation feature which makes sure that it's a positive number because a book can't have a negative number of pages, and the maximum page is 3,000. So if somebody in the future is using this Datapod framework to create books, then they can choose not only the type number, but the type book pages. And then it automatically, if it's reading in data and for some reason it reads in the wrong field or the fields get mixed up and there's a number in the number of pages field, but it's 65,000 because it's actually referring to number of characters in the file or something like that, it will see that as an error. And so you can get very finely detailed validation and intelligent applications very easily by when you create these items, you create a schema and just choose the type that you want. So, but all of that is coming. I have that in other Datapods that I've made in the past 10, 15 years that I still use, one in PHP and one in JavaScript Node Express. This one is in JavaScript Node Express. But the idea is now to bring all of what I've been doing in the past 20 years with Datapod into these 10 frameworks, with these 10 languages. So I think that is most of it here. Yeah. How to use this for you. If you want to use one of these languages, you look here, you say, Ruby, I would actually like to learn Ruby. So you just click here, and then you go to the Ruby Datapod for React Ruby JSON, and then it's all ready to go. Don't clone it because then you won't be able to push it. What you do is you say, use this template, create a new repository, which will enable you to just type a name, and it will then create a copy of my repository in your GitHub account with your name. You clone that locally, and then you're ready to go and you start developing. So that's how you would use these. Have fun, and especially if you add functionality to the qtools, which are general functions, and you make something that's cool and useful, feel free to then fork my repository and submit a pull request. So I'll pull it in and make the stuff better. That's the vibe. Just a note on my selection of languages. What I selected in the end was TypeScript, of course. And this is a very nice one because it's TypeScript in the back end, TypeScript in the front end. So, you could even share the qtools between both and that kind of thing. Go, of course, very nice language, very practical, very fast to get up to speed in that. Definitely learn it. Python, the portal to AI, super simple, fun language to program in. These two are nice. C#, beautiful language. Fun to program in, very fun to program in outside the .NET framework. It's like C# is like somebody from a family that you don't like. .NET is so huge and massive and you have to buy into Microsoft so much, or use Visual Studio instead of Visual Studio Code and that kind of stuff. And that's why I usually avoid projects now that are 100% .NET. But the C# language is a very powerful, evolved language. And so it's nice to use it outside of the .NET framework. Basically, you have to install the newest version of .NET, which runs on Linux and Windows, and Mac, so you're still basically using it, but it's you use VS Code. So PHP, yeah, super practical language. PHP, the best thing about PHP is it pays your rent. Ruby, very super object-oriented language. Everything is an object. Everything. So very fun. Elixir, which basically took its syntax from Ruby, but is functional. So a great way to get into functional programming. I wanted to include Haskell, but I just couldn't get it to import modules correctly in time. There's probably a way, but I just couldn't do it. But I'm very glad that I got Elixir to run, because that's a very nice way to get into functional programming. And just super, not simple, but super concise. Both of these. Very nice syntax. Bash, because it is just so practical, but it's very cryptic. So just building things with the Bash with the Bash framework here would be a good way to get into that, so that when you're doing DevOps something and you're on some machine somewhere in the cloud and you need a script, you can just bash it, make something in Bash. Rust, which is does things in so many different ways and so many strange ways, basically optimizing for, I don't know what it's doing, for very safe memory spaces and that kind of thing. I mean, don't think that like learning Go and learning Rust is the same thing. Rust is much more difficult to get around its concepts, but again, these frameworks are a great way to get into languages like that. So, and then Kotlin, that was basically my replacement for Haskell. I wanted to get Haskell in here, but couldn't, so I got Kotlin to run. It has a couple hacks to get going. There's some caching going on that I couldn't really resolve, but I have some hacks in there so that you basically use it like the other ones, and you're doing Kotlin. So also a kind of modern language, the new Java, if you will. So, and then that's an introduction to this here, which are the languages that I didn't include. Java, because I'm sure there's a way, but I couldn't get it to function as a scripting language like the rest of these. So I used Kotlin instead. Scala, didn't try hard with this one. I'm interested in it. It has very interesting OOP functional paradigms like C#. Yeah, and just seems kind of well evolved. Clojure, which is a super cryptic language. Anybody who uses it is like in a cult and they just love it. So there's something interesting about it, and I'll try it at some point. Haskell, as I said, very sad to not be able to use it yet, but hopefully someday I'll be able to get it to work in a Datapod framework, or I'll use it in some other way. But it's basically very functional. It's from the 80s, I believe. Elixir is also, it's not from the 80s, but it's based on Erlang, which is from the 80s. So both of these languages are like doing things that were going on back then. So you kind of get this functional past coming back, and it's another way of programming. But a lot of these functional features are now in C# and JavaScript and that kind of thing. So very useful to learn. Groovy, not sure why anyone would want to use a dynamically typed version of Java, but I might investigate it someday. Dart, because Flutter, and it seems to be an interesting kind of cousin to TypeScript. C and C++ would be kind of strange to use as a scripting language, but might be academically interesting at some point. Okay, and then there were other less relevant languages that I didn't consider, like VBScript. I did do ASP 1.0 database-backed websites in the 90s, and use VBScript, of course, which is crazy. It's a crazily simple language. I remember having to write my own array structure. So because it didn't have arrays. look that up if it's actually true, but I remember doing. I mean, it's super simple. Anyway, Perl, very painful language, but might do just for nostalgia. Do that. Smalltalk is, of course, from the 60s, very academic. I think Ruby and many other languages are kind of based on its ideas. Pascal and Delphi, important languages of the past, but not used very much. Lua is an interesting language in some gaming contexts. I've never really touched it, but if you look at the syntax, it's super simple. Might be interesting. That might be one that I do. F# is also kind of interesting, but I think C# has so many functional features today that kind of makes F# irrelevant in most cases, but might be interesting. I didn't include any of the Apple languages, Objective-C and Swift. I don't think they're very relevant outside of their core purpose of developing iOS or Mac OS apps, so not really appropriate for this kind of application. And I didn't do a framework, a Datapod framework in vanilla JavaScript, just because TypeScript gives you strong typing during development, and it compiles to JavaScript anyway. Yeah. And these are the three coding editors. As far as I know, VS Code, the AI, which uses Copilot in VS Code, is now free. I mean, I haven't run into any limits. I did run into a limit on Cursor, but at the end of the month, I got a new amount of tokens to use, so that's usable, but not if you use it too much in 1 month and don't pay for it. But you can try TRAE, which is a very nice cursor-like editor with AI. I use DeepSeek. In it you can choose between like 5 or 6 different LLMs, but as of today, it does not have a Linux version, but they will be coming out with it soon, they say. All right. So with that, let me show you each of these frameworks. This is here. Let's close everything. Close all. Yes. So yeah. What do we have here? We have a front end and back end. This is the front end. This is a Vite React site. So you have your, yeah, if you do Vite React, you know, everything starts in basically index HTML, and then goes to main. So here is your router, and then it at some point calls app. Yeah, here, and then here's your outlet where the page comes, and your header, and and then you have all your components, or actually the pages. So here's the welcome page. I have the flashcard area. Here's the flashcard area, etc. The header and nav. Yeah, and so it's just standard React, except for the way it loads data. So I have a store here, and the store is easy peasy. So the way you get into the store, or if you want to look here, it all starts an app where I say use type stored actions, initialize. Okay, so what's that doing? We have here store, and yeah, it goes into the main model here. Here's the main model. So we have your models, main model, and it's doing initialize. Initialize is a thunk. So this is basically Redux, but simplified Redux, which is actually very nice. It works very well. It takes a while to kind of get around the concept of easy peasy. It's not very well documented, but once you get it going, it works very well. And basically this framework has everything working quite well. You have state, actions, and thunks, so you can just basically copy these. So anyway, what it does is the initialize sets a message, welcome to the site, and that would be here, let's actually start this, npm run dev. And then it starts, so you're going to see here, let's put this on the side. You're going to see here, welcome to the site. So that's where it comes from. And then get store actions flashcard, load the flashcard. So this is where it's going to load these flashcards. Let me jump ahead and say, when we're in flashcards, what we do is we then load the front-end flashcards from the flashcard model, and then we just use them. So it's very Redux-like. You just grab something from, there's no dispatch. You can use dispatch, but I don't here. Dispatch is for like compatibility with Redux, but it basically is just gets data from the store and uses it. So once you have everything set up, it's very easy to use. So that's how it's used, and what it's doing here is the flashcard toggle front-end flashcard load flashcards. So what is it doing? It's going into a data model. The data model gets the flashcard, so it reads the flashcard's JSON file, which the backend produces with the script, with the parsing script. And then okay, it could just read it in and pass it up to the front end, right? Or to the component. But what it does is it goes through and it validates everything. And I did this because that's very useful to make sure that the data in your site is super clean and super validated. And the way I do that is with Zod. And a Zod has a schema. So if you notice here, I'm using a flashcard schema, and I'm safe parsing it. And if it doesn't parse correctly, then it will throw an error and not import that flashcard. So if anything is invalid with the flashcard, it won't import it. How does it know what to validate on? It uses Zod. And if you go here to Zod types, Zod, I create a flashcard schema, and I have SUUID is a string, and it has to be 6 characters in length, and it has to only have upper and lowercase letters or a number. And if it doesn't, it'll say this. And the category has to have at least 1 character, etc. So these are the rules for data to get into your application, and it works very well. And so I just set this up so that if you're going to develop the React site further, then you will you can use this as a pattern and just validate all of your data in the same way. And just to show you how this works, I can do an example. Let's go to the, let's go here. So I'm loading 5 flashcards here. And let's say I go into the data, into the JSON. And we just saw that these SUUIDs have to be 6 characters long and have uppercase, lowercase, letters, or numbers. So if I change this to have 7, then the site loads again, and I only have 4 flashcards because one of them is invalid, and the site does not allow it in, which is fantastic. So what it does in this case is it just displays it here in the console. You could do anything with it you want, send the developer an email, but and it gives you the reason. error in field SUUID. SUID must be exactly 6 characters long. Okay, let's change it to 6 characters then, and now it comes in. But what if I change one of these characters? So I still have 6, but I change it into like a percent sign. Then I have 4 again, and now it says SUUID can only contain upper lowercase letters and numbers. So you see that it's just very exact, which is very useful. Very nice. So I just wanted to give you kind of a overview of the React site. You can use it, works very well, but look, if you have a Vue site or Next.js or Angular or Svelte, and you want to use the this CLI parsing in the background, well then just copy this directory, the scripts directory, into your project, and it'll run. Create some npm, the npm, excuse me, commands for it, and you're good to go. So yeah, this is all very flexible. I'm going to be creating all kinds of sites as I get into more projects and use these frameworks, and so I'll be reporting that on my Datapod site, which brings me to the point. If I go to this how to again, brings me to the point. Oh, I don't know that I posted that, but yeah, I didn't post it, but I'm basically going to have a site, a Datapod site, that will list all of these. I think it's already online. Let me show you. Yeah, here. Yeah, so it's going to be Datapod Central, and it's going to have it's going to look a lot nicer than this, but it's going to have all of the Datapod sites and which features they have, keep them up to date so that you can use them, and then have like sites that I actually created with each of the sites, so you can see how they're used and that kind of thing. So but I'll do another video on this later. Yeah, and I think we're already 42 minutes. I think what I'll do is just look at one other framework. Instead of going through all 10, I'll probably go through each of these later in another video. But just to give you an example of how another framework that uses another language is very similar. So this is not what I wanted. Yeah, here. This is Datapod for React Python JSON. The one we were in was Datapod for React Go JSON. Okay, so these are, let's close everything. Close all. And we'll go here. So we'll close everything. Close all. So this is Go, and this is Python. So very similar. Yeah, we looked at Go. So in the Python framework and all the other frameworks, the source directory is exactly the same. So you have the exact same front end. And the data is the same. Parse data is where the JSON file is. So the only thing that differs between the frameworks is the scripts file. So you see here, maybe I can put this over here and this over here. So the frameworks will differ because of how I had to change things and maneuver things so that these frameworks would work, so that I could use the npm commands. But basically you will find some similarities. So in Python, we have the scripts here, for example, create page. That's just simply a py file under scripts. In Go, on the other hand, it is under command, and it is a directory, and it is main Go. But once you get into there, you see that basically, you know, I import qdev and CLI, and then here I have a main directory function in Go, and in Python, much simpler. I just use these, but I just use these in here, so you know you can kind of compare them. And yeah, that's kind of interesting to look at each of the frameworks and see how they go about this stuff. But you know, that's basically once you get, you know, used to where things are. For instance, qtools is qtools, and then here in Python you just have the files. Okay, it's much more straightforward. But when we go here, we see that, yeah, once you get in there, it's basically here the same code. This is a funky switch statement in Python, and this is a funky switch statement in Go. So yeah, that's all for today. Have fun, learn a lot, and yeah, I'll make videos whenever I do something that I think is interesting in one of these frameworks, or add a new feature to it that's useful or something like that. So that's all for now.